Hello everyone, welcome to Target IAS. Today I'm going to talk about some of the news articles. Welcome to News Podcast. So starting with a liquidity push for debt market, which was there in the news in December 11th, The Hindu. So we are going to discuss on that and then parliamentary committees, which was there in December 12th, The Hindu, Morocco-Israel deal, Changi 5 and Griha, which is a habit assessment report, and Myristica swamp frog, Lancet Commission challenges to WTO, and Punjab Haryana needs to look beyond MSP. These are the important editorials. So moving on to the first article, Morocco-Israel deal. What is this deal? How it is important for UPSC preparation? So before going into the details, let us try to understand the geography of this article. Let's understand the geography. You can see the Morocco. Morocco is in the northwest corner of African continent, where it spans over Atlantic and Mediterranean. This is the only country in Africa continent which touches two oceans. Important point for UPSC. Atlas Mountains passes through Morocco, and the north of Atlas there is Rif Mountain, which is also passes in Morocco. And Strait of Gibraltar, which divides Spain and Morocco. Gibraltar is an important strait. And then Casablanca is the second largest artificial port in the world. Casablanca is the second largest artificial port in the world. This is the geography of Morocco, and the border it shares with Algeria and Western Sahara. It is in the news because of normalized trace. USA is mediating between Arab countries and Israel. Morocco is the fourth Arab country which has started a formal diplomatic relationship with Israel. This is because of USA, which is backing up in this arrangement. So why it is in the news? Because Morocco and Israel has started formal establishment of diplomatic ties. First point. The second point is, in return, USA is supporting Morocco occupied certain territories in Western Sahara. So these territories are recognized by USA. So this is one factor. So Morocco and Israel deal is being mediated by USA, and in return USA is supporting, it is recognizing the territories which are occupied by Morocco in Western Sahara. So why this is the story. Let us go into the history of story. We understood the geography, let us know history of the story. In 19th century, Spain has lot of colonies in Africa because of the strategical importance and resources. So there in 19th century there is a colonization, and in 20th century the decolonization has been started because of the mounting pressure from the international as well as local people. That we can see in India's independence also. So decolonization. So in that, Madrid Accord is an accord between Morocco and Mauritania between Spain. So Spain is agreeing because of the international and local pressure. There is an accord that Spain will vacate from these two countries, Morocco and Mauritania. So this is an arrangement, this is an accord. So UPSC may ask you question like this: Morocco and Mauritania and the Spain, which accord is related to it? Madrid Accord. Madrid Accord is related to which of these countries? So you can easily note it. Another important accord which is there recently in the news is Abraham Accord. Abraham Accord is between Israel, UAE and Bahrain, United Arab Emirates. So it is also again mediated by United States of America. You know, United States of America always back Israel. So this is the Abraham Accord. It is the first Arab-Israel peace deal. Arab-Israel peace deal. So they may ask you questions on Arab and Abraham Accord. And then moving on again back to the current scenario. Now what could be the impact on this deal? Sahrawi group or Polisario Front, who resides in Western Sahara, these are backed by Algeria. They are if USA is accepting, USA is recognizing Morocco occupied territories, then it could flare up the issue. These people may get angry. So the issue can bring the regional conflict. It can bring the regional conflict. Polisario as a group in Western Sahara, if USA is accepting, recognizing the Morocco occupied territories, then these guys may get angry. So that is the story of this. What is the impact? Could flare up the issue between Polisario Front and Morocco. And there is a statement like, we keep fighting until Morocco troops withdraw. So the previous year question regarding this in 2015, which of the following countries of Southwest Asia does not open out to Mediterranean Sea? This is the question which is left for you. You can just come up with an answer in the comment section. So these articles are important importantly in geography, and we read about the history of this story. And moving on to the next article, let me read the article. Liquidity push for debt markets. So before understanding this current affair, it would be worthwhile to understand what is debt market, what are government securities, and what are global bond index. So we want to talk about that. The keywords which are mentioned in this article are Indian financial market, debt and equity market, government securities, and global bond index. So what is a financial market? A financial market is a marketplace where trading of securities will happen. They can trade the bond, they can trade the foreign exchange, and then they can trade the derivatives. So where it facilitates the trading of bonds between borrowers and the lenders. That is the financial market. The financial market has been broadly divided into money market and capital market. If you could look into this picture, the money market is a short term and the capital market is a long term. So in the money market, there is a trade of short term bonds will happen. In the capital market, there is a long term bonds will happen. So this is about the money market and capital market, right? And moving on to debt and equity market. Debt, which means if you invest in the debt, you will get an interest. So your financial interest is based on the debt. If it is an equity, you will have both finance and ownership right. For example, you wanted to invest in a corporate company. So you will invest in you will have a ownership rights, you will have the equity rights, which means you have the equal voice along with the other equity investors. So this is about the debt and the equity. Moving on to the next slide, I would like to introduce Island of Crisis. This institution which will provide long-term finance to the major infrastructure projects. So what happened in the crisis is there was a default by this institution, and there was a debt default, and then this created a mounting pressure on the equity investors. All banks, financial institution which is funded for the island affairs, they withdrawn their money from they withdrawn money from the institutions. So debt and equity, how it is related? There is an increase in the debt, the defaults has been increased, the equity has been reduced, because after all, an institution runs with the confidence among the equity investors. So this is the relationship between debt and equity market. And then moving on to one more important concept is government securities. What are government securities? The name itself, it is saying the government and some securities. Government securities are securities which are issued by the government in order to raise funds. They can invest on the special project or military projects, or indeed for day-to-day operations also. So government, in this picture you can see government need money. So the government wanted to rise with the public, but there are some certain institutions like RBI and financial institutions are involved. And one more important point of government securities is there is a promise of full repayment of principal at a maturity in the future. So they will repay, they will give you the repay. Why these are government securities are called low risk or free gilt edged securities? Because these are high graded bonds, because these are backed by tax system, because obviously tax system is being designed by the government, and then these are designed by high track record. There is a constant financial flow, high profits, even they operate in profit even though there is an adverse economic conditions, and there will be a reliable growth. If any bond reaches all these factors, then they are called gilt edged instruments. Again, I'm going to repeat this. One is constant financial flow. They should operate at profit even in adverse conditions, and they should have a reliable growth. If any bond reaches all these factors, then it is called gilt edged instrument. Not only government securities, whereas blue chip companies like large corporations also termed as gilt edged instruments. So there is no risk in it. And moving on to the government securities, again back, the government securities is being divided into short term and long term based on the time frame. One of the example is treasury bills, commercial papers, promissory notes, whereas long term are dated securities. If you could look into this slide, you can observe there is Prime Minister here and Prime Minister and then CM. So what is that? Both center and state can issue government securities to raise finance. In this you can see dated securities are issued by both center and state, whereas short term T-bills can only issue by the center because of the confidence of the public on the center government. So this is also important. UPSC asked a question on it. T-bills can be issued only by the center, whereas dated securities are issued by center and the state. This is the representation you can observe through the pictures. And government securities is also called as gilt edged instruments. Moving on, global bond index. Global bond index is a market weight index. Which includes invest grade government bonds with a maturity greater than 1 year. What does it mean? Global bond index, when you find any word called index, which means they list the bonds based on the track record, of the government. So they list the bond on the track record of the government. So moving on, by understanding with this, we will understand the dynamics of this current affair. Why it is being mentioned, what are the points which are mentioned in this article. Liquidity push for debt market, we know what is debt market, and plan to list government securities on global bond indices. So what are the points is, what is the advantages of inclusion in global bond index is to access foreign capital, If someone wanted to invest in India, so based on the rating, the agencies which give on global bond index, based on those ratings, they will check the risk. They will give you the risk assessment. Okay, you can invest in India. Based on that, the foreign capital will pump into India's economy. So they'll get an access of foreign capital. That is an advantages of global bond index. And one more point which is also mentioned in this article is fully accessible route. What is fully accessible route? Reserve Bank of India has issued fully accessible route as a separate channel. In this foreign capital, we know that even NRI's investment also considered as foreign capital, obviously. So NRI's limit has been increased, and restrictions for NRI's investment in Indian debt market has been reduced. Restrictions has been removed, the quota has been increased. So that is called fully accessible route, and they had given an operational flexibility also. The key points in this article is what are the advantages of inclusion? Obviously, to access foreign capital. Fully accessible route is being articulated by RBI for the NRIs to bring the money from the NRIs to the Indian economy. This is about the article as a whole. Moving on to the next article. The news article reads as pointing the finger at parliamentary scrutiny. The context of the news is there is a confrontation between government and the farmers. So in that sense, there is a demand of repeal of farm bills from the farmers side. So author has introduced certain aspects of scrutiny of farm bills. So before going into the details, let us understand the basic structure of the government. So the basic structure of the government, obviously we know there is an executive organ, legislative and judiciary. What does it mean? What is this? Why it is called questioning? See, when executive actions will be questioned by legislative, and legislative actions will be questioned by judiciary. This is although there is no watertight difference, but this improves the governance. This improves the governance. So legislative actions are also supported by committees. That is the theme of this article. The legislative actions are supported by these committees. Those are called parliamentary committees. Parliamentary committees has been broadly divided into standing committees and ad hoc committees that you can look in the picture. So standing committees are permanent in nature and ad hoc committees are issue based and temporary in arrangement. So they arrange for only temporary basis. Standing committees are arranged for permanent basis. There are 24 departmental standing committees, and then standing committees and ad hoc committees are broadly divided. And according in the article, it is clearly mentioned the practice during the colonial time. What is the practice that is being mentioned? India experienced legislative scrutiny of bills goes back to Montagu-Chelmsford reforms. So Montagu-Chelmsford reforms is also called as Government of India Act 1919. Although there is a reform of scrutiny, but in broad sense, the act is narrow as well as shallow. The committees which are mentioned in British India, the British India Central Legislative Assembly, the Parliament of British India, those are committees of petitions relating to bills, select committees of amendments of standing orders, select committees on the bills. These are the committees which are mentioned in the British India. So what I think it would be worth to know about the role of parliamentary committees. What are the role of parliamentary committees? Let us put in simple. Parliamentary committees is a small forum. It's a small forum consisting of MPs across the parties. This is important factor, across the parties, and it works in a closed door manner. So the role of parliamentary committees is non-partisan manner. They don't represent the political parties' ideology in the committees, since all the recordings sessions will be telecasted. So it is likely that MP will push their ideological differences in the floor of the parliament, whereas in the committees they will work in a closed manner. They don't represent ideology. They work for improving the bill. And the second one is committees which are of a closed manner will bring the domain experts. For example, surrogacy bill, which was introduced in 2016, there is commercial surrogacy and altruistic surrogacy. Maybe it is more likely that MPs may not understand the science of it. So they will bring, domain experts will be brought into the picture, like doctors and professors who are making researches will bring into the committees, and the legislative will take the ideas of that. It is not mandatory to accept every recommendation given by the committee, but although some of the points will be accepted, because you will have the best minds to work on it. And the role of parliamentary committees is based on consensus, because either from the ruling party or from the opposition party, across the parties there will be a representation. And second important point is the MPs from the smaller states may not have a voice in the parliament, but in committees they will have a voice. And the adversities politics playing out in full force in the house do not influence the committees, because they work on off the camera. In sense, the system of parliament are inclusive, including everyone, and capacity to harmonize contradictions. This is the role of parliamentary committees. Moving on to the next slide. What is the current scenario according to the author? Few bills are only referred to the committees, which means they are bypassing the parliamentary committees procedure. One is because of the time, and the second is maybe they are rushed up to make the bills, and the presiding officer will take the decisions which are mentioned in the rules of house. The presiding officer will take the decision whether to send the bill to the committee or not. But according to the author, the presiding officer decisions of sending the bills to the committees has been reduced drastically. So this is about the current scenario. Moving on to one more important article is China moon probe heads back to Earth. So we should know what is that probe, and we should also know the objectives of this probe. So Chinese spacecraft is carrying rocks and soils from the moon, has begun its journey back to the Earth. So it is Chang'e 5. They are talking about Chang'e 5. So we are going to talk about that. Chang'e 5 is the first probe to bring back rock samples from the unexplored part of the moon. Unexplored part of the moon. What is that part? It's a Mons-Rukmar region of the moon. The mission is to land on the Mons-Rukmar region of the moon. And Mons-Rukmar region is a volcanic formation on the near side of the moon. What is near side of the moon? Near side of the moon, you can look it in the picture, that is something which we can see, and far side of the moon which we cannot see. This is also important because far side of the moon is a part of the moon which we cannot see from the Earth because of tidal locking. Then we should know what is tidal locking. So tidal locking, when an orbiting astronomical object, here in this story it is moon, always have the same pace towards the object it is orbiting. The moon rotates at the same rate as it is revolving around the Earth. The moon rotates at the same speed as it is revolving the Earth. So here this is the equation, rotation is equal to revolution. Then we can only see one side of the direction. So that's why we can see only near side of the moon but not far side of the moon. Far side of the moon is unexplored part of the moon. So far side of the moon, Chinese were interested and they also launched a mission called Chang'e 4. Chang'e 4 is a successful project. The mission objectives of Chang'e 4 is to launch the rover in far side of the moon. Far side of the moon, we went this, the other side which we cannot see. So the objectives of that mission is to identify composition of the rock. This is because to understand Earth well, and to study the effect of solar winds on the lunar surface, the ability of making radio astronomy observation from the far side of the moon, and they wanted to do biological experiment. They will see if there is a germination of seeds. So this is also important. Chang'e 4 is also doing a biological experiment. So we discussed about Chang'e 4 from the news of Chang'e 5. This is in the news, and we also discussed about Chang'e 4. Moving on to one more important article, that is about the green rating for integrating habit assessment summit. So recently 12th Griha summit, shortly called as Griha summit, organized virtually. So that's why it is in the news. Let us understand the article. The details of this summit is, the theme is regenerating resilient habitats, and purpose is to think about the innovation technologies which helps in sustainable development. So what is Griha? It is a national rating system which evaluate or assess the buildings based on certain parameters that we are going to discuss, and it is created by the Energy and Resource Institute, and Ministry of Renewable Energy. This is important for UPSC. Griha has been created this, and Griha is a national rating system which assess the building, and the objective is to design green buildings. So we should know what is green buildings. It is not just green in color, or also other factors which are added. What is a green building? If you look in this picture, you can see this is a green building, and then the details are, the design should be in green, the construction should be using recycled products. Let us discuss why. And the maintenance, water conservation, water solid management system has to be established. So in short, we can say the design should not affect negatively to the environment. So that gives a green building. So negative effect on the environment. So that's why there is management like water and solid system. So due to the rapid increase of urbanization, we know what are the disasters which are creating by the urban societies on the environment. So these green buildings are the new technological advancement, not only in maintenance but also from the designing. So these are the parameters where GRIHA will assess the building, that is the site and building planet should be environmental friendly, water conservation, water management and energy efficiency. Energy efficiency, because green buildings were the buildings which uses less energy, less natural resources combined with less negative effect on the environment. So this is how it is. And the additional part of this is leadership in energy and environmental design. So the extension of the story is, it is an international recognized rating system. First important point is international recognized rating system which assess the building like GRIHA, and there is one version, India's version, that is called LEED India, the same leadership energy environment design in India version. They will also assess the building. So this is about the LEED. Moving on to the details of the energy and resource institution, if you could look into the picture, you will find a word called research. So non-profit organization which do a field work or research in energy, in environment and sustainable development, not only in India as well as in global south. So this is the more info. It is a non-governmental organization. So institutions like statutory, regulatory, quasi-judiciary bodies are also important, as well as these institutions may also come up in preliminary. And then moving on to the next article like this, some species which are found in sun place. Rare Myristica swamp tree frog found in Thrissur. First important, what is this frog and where it is being found? So important for UPSC again. So two aspects. So moving on, where it is found, it is endemic to Western Ghats and it is a rare arboreal animal. Any special features of the species, is important for UPSC. So they live on trees. Arboreal animals are the animals which live on trees. So what are the unique behavior? They descend from the trees for breeding and they are elusive. They disappear till the next breeding season. And then moving on, they lay eggs in the mud and disappear. See the pictorial representation. They live on the trees, arboreal, and they lay eggs in the mud and they disappear. This is the unique behaviors of the Myristica swamp tree frog. Then you should know the habitat of this frog also. Myristica swamp. You know what is swamp? So Myristica is generally a flower, primitive flower. Myristica swamp are the tropical freshwater swamp. Those are tropical freshwater swamp. Swamps are generally found near river, near water bodies. You can observe that there is a dense silt roots. These are the adaptation of these plants because they can live in, there are water tolerant roots. Water tolerant roots. These roots, these type of habitat which can be found near mangroves, water bodies. So Myristica swamp is a tropical freshwater swamp. This is where Myristica tree frog generally lives and they are arboreal animals. So one more important news is Commission for Universal Coverage. Who commissioned it? It is Lancet, which introduced a commission for universal health coverage. So we should know what is Lancet and why it is being commissioned, a universal health coverage. Lancet is a medical journal who generally do research on medical prospects, and Lancet has commissioned on reimagining the India's health system. Then we should know the statistics, at least some statistics of Indian health system. So mission of the commissions are to lay out a path of universal health coverage, roadmap for resilient health system, engaging with academic and civil societies. So academics and civil societies and NGOs are generally have a greater picture because they work on the ground level. So by supporting these associations, generally we can improve the governance. So Lancet, a medical journal who are engaging with the academic and civil associations. So universal health coverage, the main objective is, the name itself is saying universal because health for all, and the health should be affordable, accessible to everyone, and quality, preventive, curative and rehabilitative. So these are the components of universal health coverage. You can use these words in your mains answer writing. And moving on to health for all, what are the shortcomings of Indian health system? Lancet has introduced to review, reimagine a commission on Indian health system. So let us know the facts of doctor-patient ratio. According to the WHO, the prescribed limit is one doctor should be there for 1,000 population. But in India case, 45 doctors for lakh population. Ideal cases this WHO has prescribed, whereas the global average is 85. We are far lower than the global average. And nurse person ratio is 75 per lakh, and the global average is 255. And there is a regional variation in health facilities. You don't find equal health facilities in northeastern when compared to the south. You will have a better chances of access of health facilities in South India rather than in northeastern India. So there is a regional variation, and non-communicable diseases like heart attacks, sugar, diabetes is been tremendous increase due to the change of their lifestyles. And out of pocket expenditure is also increasing. Out of pocket expenditure means generally for health, if there is an insurance and there is a pocket money expenditure, if you spend on your own, that is called out of pocket expenditure. The expenditure of the health is far lower than the South Asian nations, especially from the China. We spend only 1.3%, approximately 1.3% of the GDP on the health. These are some of the facts of India's health system. Moving on to one more important article, the many challenges of WTO, World Trade Organization. For the first time in 25 years, WTO will be led by women. So let's know what is that. So there is a tussle between developed and developing countries. The definition of developing countries is generally given by their own countries. And in the context of special and differential treatment, we are going to talk about the definition, Doha Development Agenda, fisheries subsidies. These are the points which are mentioned in the article, and we are going to discuss on it. So special and differential treatment. The name itself is representing some idea that there is a special treatment and differential treatment. Special treatment for the least developed or developing countries, because we have to be encourage the other countries to come on par with the developed countries. And then differential treatment in the implementation of foreign commitments. So what is it? What are the advantages? What is the contention between the definition of developed and developing countries? Let's see in the slides. So advantages of SNDT, shortly called as SNDT. So longer time for implementing agreements, measure to increase in trading opportunities to raise them on par with the developed nations, and safeguarding the trade interest for developing countries. We know the developed countries, in one sense, they can impose their marketing strategies on the developing countries with the large foreign capitals. So and then support build infrastructure to WTO work and to implement technical standards. These are the advantages. And then if you look into this picture, they are gaining more with the tag of developing countries. This is the Trump statement, and we know India's poverty is 22% approximately, and how can we be rich? And the tag of developing countries is generally given by themselves. For example, if India case, we will present, okay, we are a developing country. So that is an issue where Trump is raising, United States of America, indeed. So moving on to Doha Development Agenda, if you could look into the picture, this picture plays a beautiful definition. Developed countries should encourage the developing countries, whereas in the recent phenomena, developed countries changed their favor of new agenda in e-commerce and gender. They are coming up with new marketing strategies, and they are coming up with new business entities with new industries. E-commerce is a new industry. For example, developing countries should be okay with the farm subsidies. If developing countries is giving farm subsidies, developing countries should be okay. That is what the Doha agenda. Okay, you can give farm subsidies. If they give farm subsidies, the produce will be cheap. If it is cheaper than the other products, obviously the market will follow the cheaper products. So that is the reason developed countries has to give the encouragement to the developing countries. However, they are changing their favor of new agenda. This is what mentioned in the article. And what is Director General role in COVID-19? Importance of international institution in vaccine delivery. For example, Sputnik 5 has developed, and we can bring back to India's medical system. We can buy the vaccines, whereas WHO should mediate it. So international institution has an important role, significant role in making the global vaccine delivery and facilitating the voluntary sharing and pooling of IPR. Someone who is developing a vaccine at Oxford should get the IPR, because maybe some information from India, maybe some scientist from India has given the information to the Oxford professor. And building trust among the members. This is a key point. International institutions, to sail through, they should build the trust among the members. And in recent scenario, Trump has lost the trust in international institutions. That is why he is coming back from the international institutions. Moving on to one more important article, that is Punjab, Haryana need to look beyond MSP. The context of the news is to tackle the agro crisis and what is the effect of green revolution on these states, particularly focusing upon Punjab and Haryana. Their author also compared with the other states. This is important topic which is important in terms of general studies paper 3. Moving on, green revolution. The green revolution has been started in the mid of 20th century, but in the story of 1940s, if you know the story of 1947, 75% of the Indian population, 75% of the Indian workforce is dependent on the agriculture. And the early adopters of green revolution are Punjab, Haryana and Western UP. The reason is there is something called small and marginal farmers and large farmers. Large chunk of farmers are generally from these states. So green revolution are mainly favored the large farmers compared to the small and marginal farmers. These are the early adopters of green revolution. Green revolution in combination providing a technological advancement in the form of high yielding variety seeds, as well as providing fertilizers subsidies. The input cost should be reduced. Obviously, if the cost is being reduced, the prices will also be reduced. If prices are being reduced, the market will follow the cheaper products with the best quality. And providing irrigational facilities like constant flow of water. So these are the factors, these are the aspects of green revolution. One is providing irrigational facilities and technological advancement, as well as providing input subsidies, like providing subsidies to the fertilizers. So these are the early adopters, these states are the early adopters. Why there is a keen focus of rice and wheat mainly? Why more farmers are engaged in the cultivation of rice and wheat? One is stable flow of income. So why there is a stable flow of income? Then you should know the procurement and productivity. The productivity is completely based on market. The reason is, if the market is not demanding more, obviously they don't produce. But rice and wheat is being demanded heavily in India. That's why there is a high productivity. And productivity is been backed by input subsidies, irrigational facilities and technological advancement. And procurement is backed by government decisions like MSP, minimum support price. We assure you, the government will assure the farmers, you produce, we will buy. That is through the price of MSP. They procure through the MSP. And the problems of green revolution as forecasted by some of the research professors, they said if we completely rely on rice and wheat, cultivation, maybe we could end up in a wrong notion. The reason is, if these are the water intensive crops, as well as compared to the other crops, is a nutritionally less crops. So evolution of policies is, in green innovation, in the first stage it is a success, and the second stage when the professors or research associations, institutions are asked to diversify the cultivational system, people haven't diversified because they are getting the stable flow of income because of the procurement and productivity. So they haven't been changed. Moving on to the next aspect, Punjab and Haryana and versus. The author has compared the Punjab and Haryana along with the other states. So there is a higher income per unit area in Punjab and in Haryana. The reason is subsidies and free electricity. The land rabble ratio is favorable in Punjab, and annual net income per cultivation is higher than the other states. So what is land labor ratio? You have an acre. For example, if population increases, the people who are engaged in this land increases, then wages will reduces. Same like demand and supply. In the same area, if population decreases, the wages will increases. Same demand and supply will apply. So that is the land labor ratio. If you compare, land labor ratio is generally favorable in Punjab, and if you compare the world scenario, land labor ratio is generally good at European countries compared to the South Asian. So that is about the land labor ratio. Annual net income per cultivated in higher than the other states. Punjab net income is somewhere around 5.31 lakh, and Haryana's net income is 3.44 lakh, and the national average is 1.7 lakh per year. Per year, a cultivator is earning 5.31 lakh. Look at this figures. But whereas the national average is 1.7. So that's why net income is income. The reason is rice. They relied on rice and wheat, and we know rice and will be the stable flow of income. Stable flow of income is because of the procurement and productivity. So summarizing these points. And moving on to the other facts which are mentioned in the article as farmer owns and cultivates. In Punjab, average is 3.14 hectares, 2.14 hectare. In Haryana, 1.42 hectare. In India, it is 1.17 hectare. They cultivate averagely, and one farmer can hold up this much of land. And the income which I already discussed is 5.31, 3.44 and 1.7. Look at the figures and the facts. You just compare. Punjab's GSDP in 1980s is almost when compared to the other states, is almost in the rank of 1 to 5. Whereas now it is somewhere around the position of 15 due to the other factors, because they are not diversifying. So economy has to be diversified. That is good for the economy. Your business should be diversified, and in farmers also cultivation pattern should be diversified. That is good for the environment as well as in the economy also. Moving on, if they are producing, if their income is good, if their cultivation land hold capacity is good, then why there is a distress in Punjab and Haryana? Obviously, they lost the growth momentum in the income, especially from the agriculture sector, because people are changing their lifestyles. According to the author, an urban user spends more on beverages rather than on rice. So their lifestyles, there is a change in lifestyle. That is one factor. And the second one is the per capita of intake of rice and wheat is being declined, not only in India as well as in global. These are the points which are mentioned in the article. And then moving on to the critical thinking aspect, there is a procurement problem also. For example, there is more rice to hold, then obviously there is more rice to procure. The produce has to be procured. If there is more rice to be procured, then there should be large space to hold. If there is large space to hold, obviously the financial cost of the government will increase. FCI will procure it, FCI will hold it. So this holding is a maintenance cost of the government. So financial cost will be increased. So this is also procurement problems which is mentioned in the article. Moving on to environmental issues and unemployment. Stubble burning, firstly. We know from the last decade we observed that the air pollution levels in Delhi has been increased tremendously. That is been in the news. That is creating a panic among the Delhi people. And depletion of groundwater resources is because of providing free electricity subsidies to the farmers. Farmers were exploiting the resources because there is an excess use of the groundwater. That's why depletion of groundwater resources, and the declining rate is somewhere around 1.1 1% in Haryana, and 0.6% in Punjab. The declining rate of water. There is a fear of distress of groundwater levels in the Punjab. And local youth, when coming to the employment, local youth were discouraged because they want higher income. If higher income, they wanted to go for the non-farm activities. So local youth has been discouraged because they want higher income and they wanted to go for a non-farm activities. And there is a change of lifestyle. They wanted to change from the manual work to the mind work. Manual work, physical work to the mind work. So there is a change of lifestyles too. And the lack of private investment, because due to the militancy at one point of time, private investment were withdrawn their financial interest from the Punjab. This is what we can observe through J&K example also. Why there is no investment in the J&K? Because of the militancy. When there is a high rate of crimes or militancies kind of activities, then obviously private people won't show interest in investing in that particular states. These are some of the points which are mentioned in the article. Moving on to the solution, according to the article, the author is saying there should be shift from MSP to high value crops. The MSP should be shift from MSP of rice and wheat to high value crops. So the author is saying the MSP should be even given to other crops too. And then there should be shift from promotion of non-farm activities, especially in rural areas. And the author is also saying there should be area specific enterprise development. So this can reduce the regional disparities. That is what we had seen in Green Revolution also. There is regional disparities when compared to Punjab, Haryana and Western UP. When compared to the South and especially 3 states, there is a regional disparities. So area specific enterprise development should be encouraged. So these are few points in the article which is mentioned. More contentful videos like this, reading a current affair, coming up with the background, we will help you in simplifying the process. So more videos like this, I recommend you to subscribe to our channel. Thank you.